Microsoft PowerPoint currently controls the majority of the presentation software market. It is easy to use, and slideshows are common at sales meetings, school lectures, and even some churches. In my Houston neighborhood, schools begin teaching children to create slides in PowerPoint as early as first or second grade. Despite their popularity, not all slideshows are beneficial to the audience. There are common traps people fall into when designing slides that most of us can relate to well.
Mediocre icebreaker joke that doesn't quite land. Title, dramatic pause of my presentation.
Question about how long this session will last?
Annoyed, vague response.
Exaggerated eye roll.
Poignant quote from unknown philosopher to kick off presentation in dramatic fashion. Juvenile slide transition to spice things up. Reading a long paragraph exactly as it appears on the PowerPoint slide about a shocking statistic I just learned about, followed by all kinds of vague lingo that no one will remember 2 seconds from now, capped off by 3 bullet points. So, proudly pause to make sure everyone notices my awesome clip art choice. Out of date pop culture reference.
Audible sigh to make sure everyone knows this is a complete waste of my time.
Yes, slideshows have a reputation for being a great way to put us to sleep. In school or sales settings, they're not dire outcomes when a PowerPoint presentation is poorly done. However, every day, powerful stakeholders make decisions based on data communicated in PowerPoint slides. The field of technical communication looks at the way scientific and logistical information is communicated. In technical presentations, the stakes are often very high if key concepts are misunderstood. Government and military agencies rely heavily on PowerPoint presentations to communicate complex processes with stakeholders. The popularity of PowerPoint in the military has led to junior officers earning the nickname PowerPoint Rangers. Technical communication researchers have studied the effectiveness of PowerPoint as a communication tool. Some researchers contend that PowerPoint is not the problem, it is more about the way we use it. Many scholars and business leaders have complained that over-reliance on the templates and standard settings in Microsoft PowerPoint is what needs to change. Let's look at 4 philosophies for creating public speaking slideshows and consider the strengths and weaknesses of these methodologies. We'll start with your standard PowerPoint slide. Does this slide look familiar? It should. It's a pretty typical example of a PowerPoint slide used by speakers all over the world. What I am terming PowerPoint template design is presentations created using default settings in Microsoft PowerPoint. There is a title for each slide, and text is written in complete sentences or in fragments using an outline format. Bullets delineate sections of the outline and create hierarchy. Often there are multiple sections of text and multiple photos on each slide. In the traditional PowerPoint slide, there is an emphasis on balance between text and images. It is common to see slides with a default format of text on the left and image on the right. Often when using the PowerPoint template, the speaker treats the entire slide as valuable real estate. Presenters often get focused on the number of slides they want and stick to that number. Instead of cutting content or adding more slides, they fill each slide with too much detail. This may harken back to the time when carousel projectors were used, and each slide had to be printed and purchased. Now slides are free, so keep it simple and add more as needed. Next, let's look at the more modern take on slide design, the TED Talk style. The TED style avoids title slides or text hierarchy. The emphasis is on minimal text and minimal images. Title slides and transitions are not typically used. The slides function as an accent to the presentation. Often the speaker switches to black screen between images to move the viewer's eyes back to the presenter. This is an example of a slide used in a TED conference. Images used often have an emotional punch. Another common method is the use of a literal object to represent a figurative concept. In this case, the tipping of a boat represents a work team's focus on worst-case scenarios. Storytelling, abstract ideas, and persuasive speeches are common at a TED Talks event. For concepts, it is common for slides to have one object on a blank screen that accents the story being told by the speaker. Speeches often center on making challenging concepts simpler to understand. A simple sans serif font is recommended for slides with text. When more detailed and technical topics are presented, TED encourages a very simple graph. They also discourage the use of transitions and animation in slides. Next, let's consider the least common but most unique slide creation style, the Lessig approach. This method uses visual images in a rapid-fire sequence designed to keep the audience on their toes. This method was made popular by Lawrence Lessig. Dr. Lessig is a philosopher as well as a Harvard law professor. An accomplished man, Dr. Lessig even ran for president. This method can be exciting and creative, but the effectiveness is very dependent on timing, and it requires a great deal of rehearsal time. Lessig's method could add an element of humor or excitement to a presentation. However, some might find it visually overwhelming or gimmicky. That was a lot of visual stimulation in about 30 seconds. Next, let's look at our last methodology for creating slide presentations. It is the assertion evidence approach. As the name implies, this philosophy of visual aid design focuses on presenting data and persuading through the use of evidence. Proponents for this approach want less printed text and less images. They want more time spent on spoken explanations and data. The goal is to maximize retention for the audience and stimulate both the left and right sides of an audience member's brain. This method is used at MIT, Penn State, Cornell, and many other schools that train their students to present speeches on technical and scientific data. Research has shown this presentation style to be beneficial when presenters are explaining technical and analytical concepts. In a study published by the Journal of Engineering Education, researchers found that the assertive evidence approach resulted in better comprehension and recall by the audience. Assertive evidence slides have a format that is both consistent and specific. Instead of a header, each slide begins with an assertion statement. The assertions are key points in an informative or persuasive speech. These statements are no more than 2 sentences long. This style advocates flexibility in public speaking. Based on the strengths of the speaker, they can explain the assertion in a rehearsed or a more spontaneous way. Once the assertion is explained fully, the speaker moves on to the next slide. If the speaker prefers a spontaneous speaking style, the assertions work to guide them so all key points are covered. This reduces the need for minor facts to be bulleted. This approach also advocates for summary slides that give the audience the main points at the start and end of a presentation. This is a sample summary slide. Topic photos are revealed as the speaker covers the content. The combination of spoken word and the visual cue is meant to activate both the analytical and the visual sides of the brain. Here is an example. Research on speakers who used this method found their understanding of the presentation material deepened. This could be because creating assertions forces the speaker to evaluate and then reevaluate the material. The statement creation process uses higher level thinking skills. Data is a necessary component of technology and science-based presentations. Data is displayed in a way that is simple enough to meet the intended audience's education level. Unlike the TED style, the emphasis is to only simplify enough to communicate key points. This style is geared towards an audience with an invested interest in the material, so a high level of data detail may be needed. In a study at Texas Tech University, Aaron Harden found that PowerPoint can enhance or detract from an audience's learning. Since we know slideshows are often a part of group communication, let's weigh each philosophy of design. Knowing the strength of each style can help you adapt your slides to the speech you need to make and the audience. First, there was our old reliable PowerPoint template. The template is easy to use and formatted with hierarchy. Sometimes, though, the options get speakers carried away. This slide is a good example of a really bad traditional PowerPoint slide. The eye of the viewer is pulled in multiple competing directions. Text effects are used that do not add value. However, even a bad slide made in the traditional style has some benefits. This slide was easy to make. For the audience member, this slide provides details of what was covered by the speaker. The slide can work as a useful reference tool. The 3 more modern design philosophies would have very little text. Text can benefit an audience if there are problems with sound quality or volume. For those hard of hearing, text can help with comprehension. In many styles of informative speeches, the audience relies on copies of the slide presentation as a reference sheet or study guide after the event. The outline style format of a traditional PowerPoint template can be helpful to the audience, especially if they need time to deliberate over the material discussed. Now let's consider the more modern TED style slide. The slide is aesthetically pleasing and cropped to pull the eye. The image conveys emotion and prompts curiosity. There's a cinematic aspect to visually communicating this way. There are also disadvantages to the TED style. There's no text prompt for the presenter, so they must be well prepared. This style gives little prompts to the audience if they can't hear clearly or get momentarily distracted. The slide is also a useless takeaway. It does not summarize the talking points or work well as a reference after the event. What about the fast-paced Lessig style? The stream of text and images are unexpected and work as an excellent attention getter. This style has a performative aspect and is a way to incorporate humor into a speech. For a charismatic speaker, this style is a way to highlight their strengths. It could also work as a way to make dry material more interesting for the audience. The disadvantages of Lessig are significant. The style would be over the top for many listeners and ill-suited for many topics. There are no text prompts for the presenter, so they must be very well prepared. The timing is critical, and this can put added stress on the speaker and the tech department helping them. Similar to the TED Talk style, the method does not summarize talking points or work well as a reference for viewers. Lastly, let's consider the assertion evidence approach. The design works well for complex topics and audiences that like a direct style. The audience has a summary statement on each slide that clearly states the key concepts and keeps the presentation on track. This is also the only method that is research-based. There are disadvantages to the AE style. It can appear dry and is less likely to reach the audience at an emotional level. I myself am an aesthetically driven viewer. This style lacks the elegance or wow factor that I prefer with slide presentations. Some presenters may dislike the assertion statements. They immediately lay out the speaker's key points. For some presentations, the element of surprise or the slow reveal works best. This style of slide would not be ideal for speeches meant to entertain. It could also be less effective in reaching audiences with a limited interest in the topic. When comparing the 4 presentation philosophies, determining factors should be the experience level of the speaker, time available to prepare, the style of the speech, and the receptiveness of the audience. We must also remember successful presentations depend more on the speaker than the visual aids used. I would recommend a PowerPoint template style when slides must be created quickly, or your audience wants a copy of the slides for reference. The TED Talk style would be ideal for a persuasive speech meant to inspire or prompt action. For an entertaining or after-dinner speech by an experienced speaker, the Lessig approach should be a crowd pleaser. For technical material with an educated audience invested in the topic, the assertion evidence approach is ideal. It would also be ideal for critical decision-making with corporate executives or government leaders. In closing, when designing a presentation, visual communication design concepts will improve the aesthetic appeal of your presentation. Additionally, strategically choosing your slide presentation style can add depth to your speech. Whichever philosophy you follow, choose visual images and text with intention, and always rehearse.